Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I'm your host, Lore Dude, who forgot to put up the discussion thing. Of course I did. Go ahead and throw that up really quick. Why not? Sure, we'll do this. There. So, I've had a headache for like 5 days solid now. I'm getting sick of it. That's right, I was actually going to take a Claritin this morning and hope that helps. Maybe a little bit of this. I don't know. You never know, loratadine can help, right? I had to get out of the habit of calling this loratadine because I'd go in and ask, hey, do you have any loratadine? And the people would have no idea what I'm talking about. I just want loratadine. Because Lord knows it's pollen season here right now. So we'll see. Oh, hope everyone's having a good Sunday. I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, personally. I've been looking at our upcoming streams, which I wanted to talk about briefly. So obviously we're doing Devil May Cry 5. Aspirin doesn't work for me. Alka-Seltzer really doesn't work for me, unfortunately. Neither does, I suddenly can't think of the name of it. Naproxen sodium. That doesn't work for me either. Oh yeah, this was daylight savings today, wasn't it? That might explain why I'm so tired. I actually forgot that today was daylight savings time. I just woke up and, checked my phone. I was like, oh my gosh, holy crap. I need to get ready to work. Can I just say that daylight savings time can go to hell? Libertas says I can say that, so I'm going to trust his judgment on this one. If Libertas says it's cool to say that, then it's cool to say that. Oh my gosh. Thank you very, very much, Libertas. As ever, much appreciate that support for Twitch Prime. If you'd like to put that anything towards anything, just let me know. God, no wonder I'm out of it. Because it's actually 9. That would explain so much. Where's my notes? There's my notes. So, streams. First of all, this is not straight. There we go. First of all, obviously we're doing Devil May Cry 5 right now, and that's kind of got in the way, almost, but it's okay, it's a good game, it's just, I wasn't expecting that to be so soon. Sekiro's coming out in about 2 weeks, so we're going to be playing Sekiro on the 22nd. That leaves us an unknown period of time in between there. Now, one thing that's kind of a high priority stream is the Octopath conclusion stream, which is going to tie into some stuff today, as you can see on the topic list up there. So we are going to go ahead and continue the Octopath Traveler stream, basically next, whenever we finish Devil May Cry 5. Not 100% sure when we're going to finish Devil May Cry 5. I want to try out a few things even after we beat the game, so... after that, I have a pretty big list of games to kind of barrel through when it comes to future streams. In fact, I have a list right here. I guess I can knock Vampire off the list now. Frostpunk, Binary Domain, Finding Paradise, Star Control Origins, Darksiders 3, Ace Combat 7, Frozen Synapse, Regalia of Meta Monarchs, Rujo no Hiho, 2 Point Hospital, Valkyrie Profile, Atelier, not Atelier actually, hang on. There we go. Of course, there's the Enderall mod, which is extremely highly requested, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But that list that I just mentioned is basically the highest priority right now, technically speaking. I don't know what you're thinking. Well, hang on, those aren't even on the list. Well, that's the point. Every single game that I just listed was actually part of the old list back before we started using the new system. And every single game on that list has basically had $60 put towards it, by an unknown amount of people because I wasn't keeping track. And I just want to do those and get them over with, basically, and push through all that. So, not counting, specific releases, big releases like we did with Devil May Cry 5, and we will be doing with Sekiro, we're going to be going through the old list. Vermintide 2 is on that list as well. So yeah, Vermintide 2, Frostpunk, Binary Domain, Finding Paradise, Star Control Origins, Darksiders 3, Ace Combat 7, Frozen Synapse, Pillars of Eternity 2, I'm probably going to push off a little bit, Regalia, and Mega Man. Hang on, I don't even have that up. Where's my thing? Gosh darn it, if and but. Why is this being weird? Hang on, there we go, okay. Well, thank you very, very, very much, if and but. Especially right now in my life, that is absolutely much appreciated, since I have officially, for those of you who didn't already hear this news, I have officially secured an apartment. And while that's a good thing, it is going to be more expensive every month now as a consequence of increased rent. So I am definitely appreciative of that now. Thank you very, very much. If and but, let me go ahead and switch those, split those up. If and but between Battlefleet Gothic 2 and, hang on, too many people, Warhammer Mechanicus. Thank you very much, Carino, and thank you very, very much, Gavel, as ever, much appreciate to both of you. Carino wants to put that towards Pathfinder, which is going to be a pretty high priority stream once we're done with the backlog. And Gavel doesn't tell me what he wanted to put it towards. What would you like to put that towards, Gavel? Now, If and But asks... hang on, Rex. If and But asks, when's moving day? May 15th. I'll go ahead and tell you that. So, that's actually really good, because that means I get another roughly 2 months of, lower rent in order to not spend that extra money. That was actually one of the possible deal breakers walking into this. And the fact that they were able to get me a place that was available in May, rather than having to move into next year, or next week, excuse me, was a big deal. Hi, Baronessa. Oh yeah, we're going to be spoiling Captain Marvel later. That's going to be our last thing, as usual. We leave spoilers to the end. So Rax asked, is it the most preferred apartment? That's an interesting question. I can tell you the story if you really want, but to summarize excessively, there were about 7 places that were within acceptable range. Oh, you got it, Gavel. Hang on, let me jot that down. Gavel, Pathfinder. So noted. Thank you again, sir. There are about 7 places within the area, and when I say within the area, I mean like within a 40-minute range here. 40-minute circle. And I actually went out, I think I told you about this a little bit, I went out Thursday, driving around trying to find all the spots then. Because I'm a weird and old-fashioned, I like to look at a place physically before I decide to check them out. And one of them was okay, but it had nothing going for it. There was no positive. It was about $800 a month, and it was just an apartment. It's not a bad area, not a good area, I mean, not a bad area, no good internet, it was just an apartment. So I'm like, okay, that's like bottom of the list. The next place I went to was, and I kid you not, about 100 feet from a major highway, and on the immediate other side of that highway was the airport, the international airport. That was the cheapest one, by far. And that's why it was on the list. It had Google Fiber, too. It was a gated community. Google Fiber, a whole bunch of nice stuff. In fact, honestly, if not for the show, I probably would have gone for that place. Hang on one second. Yeah. Yeah, have you guys ever lived next to a highway? I actually have in my life. I've actually been right next to a highway before in my life, and it's actually not very pleasant. I've never lived next to an airport and a highway before. So that was off the list entirely. That's just completely unfeasible. So it's like, okay. So then I checked another place, which again was fine, but had nothing really going for it or against it. So that just left 4 places. Now, of those 4, one of them had a bunch of hidden fees, which basically made it $1,300 a month. Now, for perspective, right now I live in a 3-story house that I could get for $1,400 a month. Yes, I know houses are cheaper than apartments because this is life, but I just want you to understand the perspective there, that this apartment complex was going to charge me $1,300 a month. The next place I checked out was $1,200 a month. Now, it's a damn shame, actually. The $1,200 a month place was actually really, really nice. If somehow I won the lottery, it would be the kind of place that I would be okay with actually renting, because it is a legitimately really nice area. Basically had everything I would have wanted out of a place to live, including a really great outdoor playground that Mini-Z could go run through and have fun with. But then, if you're paying attention, that leaves 2 places, okay? I actually still have the business cards right there. I don't know why I'm out of breath today. Maybe I really am having allergies. I haven't done anything. I mean, I did my exercises, but that was like an hour ago. So, lol, Plutonia. So, I go to check the one place out, and I go to check the other. Both are actually pretty good places. One of them is, like, right down the road. It's like 5 minutes from where I am right now. Now, that's a good thing because, number one, that means that I would be able to get a P.O. box, which is something I've been meaning to do for a long time now, because there's a UPS store right there. It's in walking distance of me right now. So I could have gotten a P.O. box. It's nearby. You know, I'm close to friends. I'm close to family, which is important to me, especially right now. Remind me to tell you a story about Mini-Z, actually, if you don't mind. And it's basically got all of the same detriments and benefits that I have for being here. You know, it's a good neighborhood. I get the same internet, which means I know exactly what it is, but it's not great. It would still be Comcast, because that's the only option around here. You know, same grocery store, pretty close to everything I need to be, you know, blah, blah, blah. So it was a good place. That place was going to be $800 a month, but that $800 a month was going to include electricity, which is pretty rare that someone will actually do that. The catch would be I would effectively be living in what was once like a 3-bedroom home, which has been split into 2 efficiencies. So noise would be a little bit of an issue there. But overall, still a pretty good option. And the manager was nice, and she was helpful, and she helped with everything, blah, blah, blah. The other place has Google Fiber. Let's just start with that. It is way out there. It's like in the middle of nowhere, basically. It's right next to an industrial park. And that's all that's out there is this massive industrial park. In fact, the reason it has Google Fiber is because it's right next to the industrial park, which is where they laid the fiber cables for. All one story, so no worries about anybody being up and top making noise. It's nice and quiet. It's a good neighborhood again. You know, all sorts of good stuff. There's a washer-dryer hook up there, but no actual washer-dryer in, but I could buy one, which is something I've been thinking about doing anyways. Because washer-dryers, if you get them right, are not actually all that expensive. You know, that kind of a thing. So both of these spots were good. Good spots. Now, the one I'm going with is the Google Fiber one. I'll go ahead and just skip ahead in the story, because what happened was just kind of a ridiculous sequence of events. But like I said, the place I'm going for is the Google Fiber place. The place I've reserved is there. It's going to be, like I said, we're moving into the middle of May. I'm still debating how exactly I'm going to lay stuff out. Right now, what I'm most likely to do is to set up my studio in the bedroom and just devote the bedroom to the studio entirely. And I'll actually just have my bed out in the living room. And, you know, figure that out. And yeah, we'll finally be rid of Comcast. Like, I know we kind of joke, but let me just make this very clear. The Comcast connection here is unacceptable, especially for how much money I pay for it. So, not only will it be cheaper, by like 3 digits cheaper, but also it will be more reliable. You guys see me dropping frames all the time on stream. That's because of Comcast. And when I do online gaming, which I do semi-frequently because it's me, I tend to get disconnected constantly because it's Comcast. It is extremely unreliable service. So yeah, I pay a lot of money for crap internet. So I am actually quite happy about finally being able to switch over to Google Fiber. Yeah, no kidding, Maverick. So yeah, the mini Zan story. So obviously I live with my niece right now. She's just upstairs. And I was looking at a lot of these places. This was before I'd settled. This is when I was getting the list of the 7. So I'm sitting there, chatting with other people, and we're discussing our options. And she roams in, and she just kind of does this as we're discussing and debating options and talking about stuff that's probably a little bit over her head, because we're talking about all the nitty-gritty, all the things you need to know, like water lines and where the nearest grocery store is, and local criminal reports, all that fun stuff, all the stuff you know when you're looking into a place. And she kind of hops up, and she says, so, she obviously doesn't call me this, but can... Baba, which is what she calls him, and he's like, yeah, what's up, kiddo? He's like, if he's gonna move out soon, right? Yeah, that's right. Well, are we still gonna be able to go and visit him? We're at his new place? And he, laughing, he says, of course we are. Of course we'll be able to go visit him. And she gets this huge relieved look on her face and just gives me the biggest glomp. Like, just almost bowls me over with a glomp. And I just start melting. Just utterly melting. I'd been having a really bad day that day, too. And that just completely made my day. Oh, my God. So that's the mini's answer. Anyway, so sorry for boring anybody who doesn't care about me. That's just my life stuff going on here. Hopefully. So I should mention one other thing. Speaking of which, because that's all the my life stuff. But as I said, there's 2 aspects of this move that are going to affect the show. Obviously, I'm going to have to stop streaming for a bit in order to, and stop YouTubing for a bit in order to move, but usually I can get moved within a day. That's my norm. So I'm not too worried about a lot of downtime, but I'm not going to schedule a stream for that week just in case. We'll probably do like a, hey, new place stream, and hopefully you won't even notice the difference, because we'll have a green screen and lighting effects. But there are 2 things that you should notice. So first and most obvious is the fact that that we're going to be on Google Fiber. We already talked about that. All those frame drops, all that connection problems. Hopefully that's going to be resolved. I say hopefully. I mean, fingers crossed, right? It's Google Fiber sitting on an industrial pipe. I should freaking hope it's resolved. But the second thing is I will no longer be about 5 feet from an AC unit. Anybody who heard just about anything I did last year knows that when that AC unit's on, there's nothing I can do about that noise. It's just... right? So, that will no longer be an issue. In fact, one of the things I tested when I was there was the AC and its noise, and exactly how bad it is. It's a good AC, which is good, because I need it to be cool, but it is also an AC that is not super loud. So, yes, that's true, and there will be no dog, for those of you who are bothered by the dog. Occasionally I do have to mute, because he just goes off. But yes, there will be no dogs. That's 3 things that will be affecting the show. And hopefully all of that will be good. I'm not worried about loud neighbors in the neighborhood I'm walking into. So that's probably not going to be an issue. Yes, people will stop existing, Platty. That is absolutely correct. Hi, Dream Whisperer. So, having done all that, let's go ahead and get to actual stuff. So I do have some random news that does nothing to do with me. So, first and foremost, there's a lot of movies coming out this year that I actually want to see. There's not that kind of industrial area. It's an industrial park. What do we got? We've got Shazam is coming out in like 3 or 4 weeks, which I'm probably going to go see with Third. He wants to see that. We've got Endgame coming out pretty soon. We've got the new Spider-Man coming out. We've got... what else? Frozen. Frozen 2 is coming out. That's November. I feel like I'm missing one in like June or something like that. I can't actually remember. I swear there's another one. No, Roaring. There's like 5 or 6 movies coming out this year. This is definitely one of those movie years. I'm not going to see Alita. It's just not my thing. I don't care. Shrug. It's a new Spider-Man. But I mentioned that because we've gotten a little bit of news on the DC film. So I've heard several rumors. This is still in the random news section. I've heard several rumors. Oh, I could totally do it, Arthurius. That, in fact, hang on. Let me just Terminator it up. There we go. Oh, yes, Toy Story 4. That's also coming out this year. And I feel like there's still another one. the DC EU, the DC Extended Cinematic Universe, there's been a lot of rumors that they're trying to abandon that entirely. Now, I have actually tried to do my due diligence because I actually know how to do my job, and I have not been able to substantiate these rumors. And I wanted to start with that because I'd seen a lot of sites been like, oh my god, they're abandoning the interconnected universe. And there is no actual evidence of that. Like, none. Zippo. But it wouldn't surprise me if they decide to go ahead and do that, especially given how many films they have in the works right now over at DC. And I don't know. I'm still pretty hesitant about DC films in general. We'll see how Shazam is, like I mentioned earlier. But I mentioned this as well because Suicide Squad has lost Will Smith, but has gained Idris Elba, which I'm not sure what to think about on that one. Now, personally, I actually love Idris Elba. In fact, I'm actually legitimately interested in the new Fast and the Furious spin-off, because Idris Elba is going to be the villain, and because it's a Fast and the Furious spin-off, because I'm one of those weirdos who actually likes the ridiculously stupid nature of the Fast and the Furious series. Think of that what you will. We'll see. We'll see. Gotta be honest, though, I'm not sure. Yeah, I agree, by the way. Idris should have been Stewart. That's just such a duh. He could totally pull off Lantern, but anyways. I know, it's so stupid, isn't it, Baronessa? It's freaking... It's the two superheroes facing off against an actual superpowered human. I mean, come on. Anyways. In unrelated news, Blizzard... Okay, this is actually kind of bad news in its own way. So Blizzard is releasing Diablo 1. Actually, Diablo 1's already out. And later, Warcraft 1 and Warcraft 2 are all coming out on Good Old Games, on GOG. This is interesting, because on the one hand, this is basically the first time that Blizzard has released their own IP on another digital distribution service. To be clear, I'm cool with the lack of exclusivity. That's good. And it's good that we'll have actual, from what I understand, actual functional versions of the old game, because that's what GOG does. So people are like, why is that bad? Because this means Blizzard has effectively abandoned these games. Now, this was already something that was likely, as I myself have reported on several times. But this basically means that we're not going to have a proper remake of Diablo 1, Warcraft 1, or Warcraft 2, probably ever. If we do, it won't be any time within the next several years, or under the current leadership. And that sucks. But it is still a good thing overall. It's just also a bad thing, because that's how life is. So yes, Valve, speaking of what Hazardous just mentioned, Valve is axing a decent chunk of its VR department, and a huge chunk of its... Hi. Well, that's the idea, Norlex. That's what GOG usually does. Alright, hang on. Before I respond to Tazara, I don't have the mind for that right now. I just want to say Valve is axing a huge chunk of their artifact staff, and is basically pulling back on their budget and their staff when it comes to their VR department. Now, you might be like, who cares? Valve has been one of the biggest pushers of VR for years now. For years. And so Valve pulling back on VR means that while I myself have not been in a VR enthusiast or whatever, mostly because of what it does to me, the fact is that I have still been in favor of the technology developing and getting better. With one of the biggest pushers pulling back, now we have issues, because who knows what VR is going to do next, or if anyone else is going to be willing to dump the money on it. In addition, the fact that they're just completely giving up on Artifact means that's going to hell. So, that's neat. That is a realm of legal gray area, Snordun, and that's the honest truth. Right now, there is a massive gray area of ownership of digital rights. So, for example, if you buy a movie on Amazon Prime, you do not have an option to download that movie, even though you own that movie, but it is technically within the realm of possibility that they could rescind the ownership of that movie if they wanted to. Except they would have to... Like I said, it's a bit of a gray area. Now, Tazara, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing, man? So that's, God, I can't math this morning. It's too early. Okay, that's what I thought. Apparently I can math. I just need to trust myself more. Thank you very, very much, Tazaro. As ever, I do much appreciate your support, like I said, especially right now, since my bills are going up soon. In 2 months, actually. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Please put that towards something for future streams. Put there something that's not funded. Or Starlink. So, yeah, thank you very, very much, Tazara. Now, let's see here. For its first month rent. I mean, I've already put down my deposit. Oh, yeah, by the way, real quick. I know you're tired of hearing me talk about myself, but real quick. So, I had, like, no credit for a really long time. I'm sure you guys didn't hear about this because I don't think I talked about it on stream, but I basically had absence of credit. I had no bad issues. I had a completely clean record. It's just I had no credit whatsoever. So it was a huge, massive, colossal pain to get a line of credit at all because they won't give you credit cards if you don't have credit, which is just stupid. So I ended up doing the stupid method and going ahead and getting basically a bank-paid card and using that until I had enough credit to get a real card, which I then did enough to get enough credit to get an Amazon card, which is basically just a Visa card through Amazon. And then it's like, aha, okay. Now, unfortunately, I know how the system works. And by the way, can I just say that the credit system is really, really stupid? Can we just all admit that for a second? But, point being, my deposit was $100. Now, for those who don't understand what that means, I have really, really, really good credit. And absolutely nothing negative on it. That is as low as the deposit can go. Because of how good my credit rating is. Anyways, moving on. Okay, you know what? I'm going to put it towards Starlink. Absolutely, because I really want to play that game. Thank you again. No, I'm gonna do The Office first, Nakamikado. No, I agree. The current system is credit. I could do a whole episode just talking about how broken and stupid the current system of credit is. Because what they want is for you to always be in debt, but still be making enough money to pay off the interest on the debt, but not the debt itself. And if you put it that way, it makes a degree of sense, but that's still awful and horrible when you think about it. And so in order to prove that you have good credit, you have to prove that you pay off interest and not debt. And it's just... What? God, I hate that crap. Yeah, I technically am not in debt. I say technically. It's more accurate to say that I am technically in debt, but I'm not. I'm just gaming the system, basically allowing interest to hit every month, and then nuking it down, and then allowing interest to hit, and then nuking it down. So it looks like I'm paying off interest for the actual credit reporters who check that, but in fact, I don't owe any money to anyone for anything, because I don't like being in debt. But anyways... Oh, it's pretty horrible, Sounder. It's just messed. I'm sorry, let's move on to our next topic. Let's talk about Nintendo. Speaking of financial matters, let's talk about Nintendo. This is great. How many of you have heard about the Nintendo mobile stockholder thing? This is fantastic. Oh my god. It kind of is hazardous. I mean, if you think about it, hang on. Let me switch playlists real quick. Do I have any Mario? Oh, I do actually have Mario music here. Let's just go down here. There we go, Mario music. So, let's go ahead and go down to the specifics, because a lot of sites are just reporting the surface level, and I want to cover a little bit more of the under the surface level. So, several sites. Recently, Nintendo was criticized. Bizarro Lore Runner? Well, he'd be very judgmental, Adam, and he would jump to conclusions instantly and never change his mind. He'd also be really good-looking and very skinny. Now, and have no charisma. Obviously, we had the quarterly reports. That just happened 3 weeks ago now. It's relatively recently, when we discovered that Blizzard Activision decided to fire off 800 people for having a really good year. I'm never forgiving that, by the way. I'm not letting that go. That is disgusting on so many levels. While simultaneously giving up more in their dividends. Let's not add that. But anyways, so during the report, several investors and investigative reporters all said that Nintendo's mobile division was not bringing in the amount of money that they should. And that was something people were criticizing Nintendo for this and saying, to put it simply, that Nintendo should be utilizing a more aggressive, and let's use the correct word here, a more predatory nature of mobile transactions and mobile gaming in order to generate more money on the mobile market. Yeah, no kidding, Adam. And yes, this is DST. Sorry to go. Honestly, I didn't even remember. I just was going off of my clock, which automatically adjusts. So yes, this is not a joke. I want to stress this really quick. This is not me pushing words into other people's mouths. The actual investors and investigative analysts for the financial side of the market on Nintendo corporate said they should be more exploitative when it comes to their mobile games. Now, the response that was given for that, and I have a partial quote here. I didn't write down the whole thing because it's a whole paragraph. But the partial quote response to that was that Nintendo, if Nintendo was only making one game, and that one game was a mobile game, then they would absolutely be more interested in making more money off that one game. However, because Nintendo makes money on multiple games, they tend to view mobile games as more of a matter of raising IP awareness and using that additional cash in order to use it as flow-through for their major projects. Nintendo was blasted for this by investors and by analysts. Now, I can say that in slightly more English terms if you'd prefer, but I think you get it. I make fun of and spit on Nintendo corporate a lot because Nintendo corporate makes a lot of stupid decisions. But this, for once, is legitimately brilliant. Like, actually smart move. They have their mobile games. They have several at this point. And they do make their own money because, remember, mobile games are super cheap to both make and maintain. And they're using them and pulling back on them and not being super bad about them specifically to try and just raise awareness both of Nintendo in general and of their brands in specific. And I'm with that. Like, that actually makes perfect sense to me. Especially the second part, which I mentioned as well, which is the idea of using some of the excess money there to push into other projects. Some of you may remember, every now and again we've discussed mobile gaming and the predatory nature of a lot of mobile games and how they try to bilk money out of people, out of whales and whatnot. I pointed that out many times because one of the most common defenses I've ever heard of mobile games like that. By the way, it's good to see you again, Anthony. Sorry, I didn't say hi earlier, but it's good to see you back. One of the most common defenses I hear about mobile games is, well, I mean, think of what they could do with all that extra money. But we have had so few, in reality, examples of them actually taking that money and putting it towards some good. Usually they do what I personally call the investor's fallacy. I don't know if there's a proper term for this, but this is just my own terminology. But the idea is, okay, I invest X, I get X plus Y. So I invest X plus Y, so I get XYZ. So I invest XYZ, and I just keep reinvesting all of my profits, assuming it will continue to accelerate. That's not how reality works, and that's how bubbles burst, and that's how markets crash. just to summarize. So I love the idea, because that's what most gaming companies have been doing, especially publisher companies have been doing with their mobile profits, is they've been putting them to additional mobile games. This is the first time I've ever seen something close to an actual, real, official report that there is a company out there that is taking mobile money and putting it into other games. Like, for once, someone's actually doing that. Holy crap. Right? This is also from the company that recently just said openly, yeah, we're canceling, we're starting over on Metroid Prime 4. We're sorry. Balls, by the way. I think I already commented on that, but I just want to say that took balls. Exactly, Tazar. You have to diversify. This is not a computer algorithm that applies infinite math. This is real life. Anyways. There was actually another quote, and I didn't write it down, I don't think. Let me double check here. No, I didn't. There's another quote, so I'm just going to paraphrase this one, which was basically, you can't trade in on consumer trust for consumer money. Like, that's my words. But they basically said, gouging your customers for short-term games is long-term, is short-sighted. Which is true. Anyways, let's talk about our actual topics. I do have actual topics today. Speaking of mobile games, I do have actually a mobile game topic today. Believe it or not. Let me get a timestamp here. Where are we at? Yeah, CD Projekt Red said the same thing. Projekt Red, excuse me. Now, I guess that was an actual topic. I didn't mean for it to be. Yeah, TNG is coming up soon-ish. Let's talk about Octopath. How many of you guys know what Octopath Traveler is? How many of you like Octopath Traveler? Octopath is getting a prequel game. On mobile. I would too, Baronessa. Now hear me out. First of all, obviously I don't really care for Octopath. Oh, you're welcome, Hollow FPS. I'm glad that you really got into WoW as a consequence, and I hope that the lore helped. And as ever, if you have any comments or questions, just let me know. You want to watch my premiere run of Octopath, Adam? Well, it hasn't been uploaded yet, because we haven't finished it yet. I actually still have the files locally, don't worry. I see them every time I go to upload a video. They're just sitting there in the to-be-uploaded folder, staring at me. But I do want to talk about this, because my first reaction was, ugh, really? And I'm going to admit that. That was my first knee-jerk reaction. Ugh. Because, really? But then I started thinking about it. How many of you can think of a video game, especially an RPG, which you would like to see more Gaiden content for? Can anyone think of such a thing? Gaiden meaning like side content or unattached content or unrelated, related content but off to the side of the main story. 23 million, Velvedrix. It'll happen. Every RPG, Dragon Age, Yakuza, Fire Emblem, Morrowind. You probably already see where I'm going with this. So we live in reality, which I just made a whole speech about earlier. Obviously, Jade Empire, obviously in an ideal world it would be nice if we could just get those Gaiden games. But we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a world with limited time and resources, which is why... no, I'm kidding. Which is why we have to... That's coming out in like a month, by the way. Can you guys believe that? Month and 3 weeks, actually. We need to accommodate for time and for budget. It's not a bad idea to take a pre-existing engine or a pre-existing series of source material and basically dump it onto this, which will be a lot cheaper to make and take a lot less time to make as a way of continuing to develop any given game. I'll go ahead and do Gaiden stories and Gaiden games. So, Platty, I feel like I've explained this before. The reason it was 11 million is because that's how much I need. So if you give me 23 million, I will get 11 million after taxes. Make sense? So in other words, even though I'm not a big fan of the mobile market and probably don't care enough to actually play any of these things because I just don't like playing games on the phone, nevertheless, I do actually like the idea of, here's an FF15 spin-off on the phone. Because, again, it is simply cheaper and easier, and takes less time, to develop on the phone than it does on anything else. And therefore, it is actually more available, more possible for developers to actually not only make this stuff happen at all in reality land, but also to sell the actual publishers and executives on the matter, which is another obstacle in the way of making this happen. So, makes it more likely to happen for real, and makes it more likely to be, accepted, to be greenlit. for it to actually happen. I'm kind of with this. I'm kind of with this idea. Now, this is all, of course, predicated on the idea that this has to be good. They have to actually make these games and actually make them worth a damn, and not make them, oh, I don't know, like a random reskin of some game that most people haven't heard of, but we found out about within like a day of the announcement. You know, just spitballing here. I aim to please, Pletty. But you get the idea. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a good thing, and this is certainly not what I want, but I think that this might be a situation where this could be a net positive development. Again, as always, predicated on the idea that the mobile game is at least good, or is at least acceptable, you know? No, we're not even talking about Captain Marvel yet. We're not there yet. That's the last thing on the list. Devil May Cry Mobile. So, Baron is, of course, joking, I'm sure. But here's the thing. Some of you may not be aware of this. There are several, I'm sure there's a term for this, but plays themselves mobile games. And I mean that. They completely play themselves. I've actually shown one of these on camera, where it's just, the character automatically attacks and automatically uses abilities, and you just hold the phone and watch it happen. That's what I could see a mobile Devil May Cry game being like. Not sure if that would actually be good. Yeah, thank you, idle games. That's a good term for that. See, I'm really torn on this whole thing. The argument could be leveled that maybe rather than going ahead and doing this on mobile, they should go ahead and just basically utilize expansion effect to release what are effectively expansions or mini expansions or DLCs, using the existing thing in order to just kind of, keep, like imagine if this Octopath prequel was coming out on the Switch instead. Now, this is going to sound like a PC elitist title, but there's no nice way to put this. The simple fact is, the only other thing that would be easier for this to do would be to do this on the PC rather than the mobile. Because PC is a market that's really easy to get into, really easy to distribute through, and a lot of these games are already coming out in a PC format. Hence, you already have an engine that already works on the PC, therefore doing that, right? But this is kind of predicated on the idea of effectively making a dumbed-down version of a pre-existing game on the mobile as a way to continue it or present it or whatever. Now, Fire Emblem does have a mobile game. I've actually played that quite a bit. I got a decent ways into the story until I got so sick of it that I put it down, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not saying that this is a good thing. I'm just saying that this is an interesting development, and it'll be interesting to see if this is something that is continued in the future. Because for the most part, we only really see four types of games on the mobile. There's ports. You can play KOTOR on the mobile right now. There's mobile games, which are decent, the Flash game kind of a thing. There's Mobage, which can go to hell. And then there's the really rare fourth category, which I had to add in, which is basically an actual, legitimately good mobile game. And I don't mean like a mobile game like the first category. I mean a game that utilizes the advantages of being played on a phone properly. There's a few decent AR games. Arguably, Pokemon Go is actually a decent mobile game, if you could think of it that way. Not because it's a particularly fantastic game, but because of the fact that it actually is a mobile game. I mean, I'm kind of with you on that, Bernissa. Yes, Mobage. 3DS games are not mobile games, no. 3DS games are 3DS games. Those are handheld games. It's a different category. Let me put this back to random. Now, I don't know. I'm not sure what I think of this, but it could be an interesting development going forward. Let's move on to our next topic. So we're going to go ahead and hit... We only have 2 Tumblr questions this week, which is good because we have a lot to talk about. We've already been talking for about 40 minutes. How many of you know what TNG means? Just real quick. Just kind of a blind poll here. Data's show. Ah! I'm sorry. I remember when we first had to affix Tokyo Vampire into Star Trek. Now, Tokyo Vampire, he didn't really fit all that well into Star Trek. It was a bit of a touch and go kind of a thing. But I think having vampires and Tokyo at the same time in Star Trek was a really good move. I mean, if you think about it, Data's basically a vampire anyway, so just kind of one-to-one. Thank you very, very much, as ever. Much appreciated, Tokyo Vampire. And I've put that towards Judgment. TNG, of course, stands for Star Trek The Next Generation. Once upon a time, I say we, geeks in general had to come up with a terminology to differentiate the original series. Because it used to be, some of you may not remember this, we used to call it Star Trek and then Star Trek TNG. And then after a while, it was like, we need an acronym for Star Trek to kind of differentiate it, because over time, TNG kind of overtook TOS. It's like, what do we call it? How about the original series? There you go. And then there was enough push to make that an official thing, and blah, 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 blah. So this is a Tumblr question. Star Trek The Next Generation has been signed on for 3 additional seasons, and you are writing for it. Congratulations. You are tasked with creating an arc following Hugh and the freed Borg. The arc will carry through all 3 series. What type of story do you make? Actually, Baron, no, she didn't. Hate to spoil that. But she didn't. Let's assume they allow you to do character arcs. Let's assume you have total control, creatively speaking. Because I know exactly what I would want to do, at least loosely. So I shouldn't say exactly. I know loosely what I would want to do. You missed everything, Mike Romano. We're done. The stream's over. But yes, we can totally turn TNG into an actual serial. And a serial that's actually good. I'm sorry. That's mean. I don't actually mean that. So, what I would do is I would sit down and I would come up with 6+ story arcs, okay? Roughly. I would actually cover... Remember, these stories has to follow Hugh, guys. Keep that in mind. That's the creative limitation. You have to be following... The perspective character is no longer Picard or Data or anyone else. It's now Hugh and his crew, so you have to follow that angle. But what I would do is I would come up with 6 or so arcs, 6+, 6 at a minimum, arcs. And I would have each of these be arcs that Hugh and his Borg effectively weave into and out of as they're happening. So... no and no, respectively, Undead Elvis. Make it darkier and edgier, yes! He was like, oh, these wounds, they bleed. Oh, they cover... I don't know the lyrics to the song. Darkness. I shouldn't have done that. I have a headache. I would have it follow... So, you know, obviously I've talked about several different... yes, I have, Micromano. I've heard of several different story arcs that could happen here. The fallout of Cardassia is just an immediate thought here. Now I know what you're thinking. What the hell does Hugh have to do with Cardassia? I want you to imagine an existence in which Hugh, for whatever reason, and his Borg basically do not have the resources necessary to continue to survive. Now this leaves them with a couple of options. They can raid, which is technically what the Borg actually do, if you think about it from a distant perspective. Or they can trade. Now, this could lead to some bad problems because Hugh and his Borg are not particularly concerned with the ethics and morality of trading technology. But, that being stated, I think that the idea of them trying to help the Cardassians rebuild in the wake of being nearly completely devastated by the Dominion would lead to some interesting... I think we could do some work with that, is what I'm trying to say. I think we could actually work with that and make that work. They could also do both, Hazardous. In fact, if I'm being honest, I think I would have the first arc be about them raiding and effectively losing. You know, basically forcing a coalition against them, or simply not succeeding, or maybe it bothers them sufficiently that they're raiding, or it gets to the point where they raid a wrong target or something. Something goes wrong. Some things go wrong, I think I would actually have it happen. Several things, like a cascade effect. Until finally they're like, all right, we can't do this anymore, guys. This isn't working. And then Data shows up and is like, what are you people doing? And a smack and a smack and a smack. Go trade. Oh, that's a good idea. How do we do that? How do we determine value? And then, like, the second arc, so the first arc is the raiding. The second arc is them discovering how to socially interact with others in a way that they've never really had to do before, because social interaction is kind of alien to the Borg, right? So... and then, you know, advance that into, now that they have discovered and figured out how to trade, you know, the end of Season 1 would be something along the lines of them trading with someone having going incredibly badly. Yeah, actually, Adam, I like that idea. And so that leads into Season 2, where they have to try and make up for the incredible screw-up they made in Season 1. This is going to sound like a weird segue. Hear me out. How many of you guys have played Guild Wars 2 Modern? Like the story arcs that are currently coming out and have been for the last several months? I swear I'm going somewhere with this. I just recently played the most recent story arc just a couple days ago with PAX. And I'm not going to spoil, don't worry. You should go play it. Let me just start with that. But one of the things I love most about Guild Wars 2's storytelling is they are unafraid of consequence. I like that. I like the fact that they aren't afraid to change the status quo and to make things go really badly. You know what I mean? I have been saying for years, and so has PAX, we've been saying for years that we need to start losing in MMOs, right? You know, I said that walking into Legion, I said that walking into the Iconian stuff in STO. Anyways, this brings me to my point. I would have all of Season 1 basically be one bungled effort after another until they're, you know, oh god, everything's going to hell. Wait, okay, we're starting to recover. No, it's even worse than it was before. And that would basically be the map of Season 1. You know? That would be the whole idea. Season 1 would end with everything just going really, really badly. I'm not sure what exactly. I'd have to think about that specifically. I still like the Cardassian idea. Like, imagine if they reached out to Cardassia first, because remember, they're kind of in the immediate wake of, you know, horrible stuff happening. And it's like, you know what? Maybe, just as a thought, maybe we reach out to these Cardassians. Oh, thank you so much, thank you so much. Cardassia rises again as a power using Borg tech to crush, and Bajor's destroyed, or something, you know, something really horrible. And then Season 2 would be about trying to be like, oh god, okay, we need to try and fix this. Oh, speaking of which, I would have one time travel episode, just one. Because it's Star Trek, you need to have time travel. Funnily enough, I actually know the exact time travel episode I would do, because I've already written it in my head. For those of you who don't remember, I actually did some work with a few friends of mine several years ago about an idea for a new Star Trek show. This was many, many years ago, back when CBS was still taking ideas for that, and before, like, right in the wake of Star Trek 2008. So there you go, it's 2008 when we did this. But I mention this because I had an idea for one time travel episode in that entire story arc. And that one time travel episode was the origination of the Borg. The idea in the episode was that the crew accidentally started the Borg. They didn't even realize it. They weren't cognizant of it. It's just, it kind of happened off, you know, as after they leave and go back to the present, the camera stayed in the past and was like, hey, so this is how the Borg started. So I'd use that same exact idea with this, because it's you, for God's sakes. Yeah, we'll have the sled up, Fab Alex, don't worry. The sled will be up if we have spoilers. Now, the problem is, my own ideas, which I just posited, you know, raiding, trading, doing stuff, you know, that's Season 1 and Season 2. I don't have a Season 3 really lined up. So what would you guys do? I posit you the question. Let's say I have done Season 1 and Season 2, and I hand the writing reins off to you. What would you do with Season 3, keeping in mind the requirements that I've already listed, which is you have to follow Hugh, and god damn it, continuity. I have done that many times, Nordon. And now I wait. Now we play the waiting game. And can someone tell Fab that there's no spoilers up at the moment? Brady Bunch ending. I mean, actually, I kind of like... I'm the one of those people who likes the Galactic Alliance in STO, so... Depends on the ratings? Nope! You're writing all this in advance because you're a good writer. Yeah, I said it. A Romulan Civil War. Ah, yes, we do have to acknowledge Romulus, don't we? Funnily enough, STO also followed through on Romulus. And one of my biggest problems with is any ideas I had would have to fit into STO. And STO has already covered several stories I would like to cover. It's one of the reasons I started going the route I just mentioned with it. Hi, Max Time. The Fall of the Klingons. Actually, I like that idea. One of my favorite little speeches in DS9, and by that I mean like my 10th or so favorite speech in DS9, is when Dax talks about how she feels that the Klingon Empire is dying and self-destructing. Oh, I wouldn't, Jaluta. Absolutely not. I'm not going to quote it here because I don't remember it here, but it's a good speech. I like it. Would I give the Borg an origin? Yeah, that would be my time travel story ended, Elvis. I just mentioned that. Formation of the Romulan Republic? Hmm. I actually like the idea of a Borg Civil War. I like the idea of Hugh basically coming into contact. I did one time travel episode next time. I like the idea of Hugh coming into contact with the Cooperative. I absolutely adore the Cooperative as a storytelling concept, and I wish we had more of them, storytelling-wise. We had one episode in all of Star Trek, and then like a few episodes in STO, and that's it. So I do actually like the idea of doing something with the Cooperative. The Borg? No, Doctor Who. I think the Borg are plenty sympathetic as is. But Hugh and his group, yeah, I'd make them sympathetic. Okay, so what's going to happen, guys, is the Borg are going to go into the past, but then they're going to bring Hugh back. But it's a different Hugh. It's Hugh from, like, 10 years ago, and then they're going to bring a Hugh from, like, 3 years ago, and then a Hugh from, like, 5 years ago, and there's going to be, like, 13 Hughs, and they're all going to be like, We are now the Borg, all of us, for we are Hugh. See, I don't like the idea of having a Civil War early, Salder. I like the idea of having a Civil War late. Because the idea would be that now that they have... So in Season 1, they're struggling. In Season 2, they're recovering. In Season 3, they're thriving. And I know this sounds like a really weird thing to say, but for me, it makes more sense that they would be inclined to infighting when they are no longer in a desperate strait, when survival is not a day-to-day concern. Instead, when they have the time and availability to say, yeah, okay, you know, I think we should be doing things a little bit differently. That just makes sense to me, especially for these rogue Borg who don't really have a lot of the social constructs that we have in real life. So I think it would be Season 3 would be the time for a Civil War, personally. Now, what happens in the Terran episode? God, I don't know. Okay, so first, we see alternate Hugh, and he's incredibly evil, and he eats puppies. And then we see a whole bunch of other people who are, you know, in the show, and they're all incredibly evil, and they all twirl every single person. Hugh has a mustache. Everyone has a mustache. Actually, no, Undead Elvis. We really do not know. We really don't know anything about the Borg origination. I should get one of those fake plastic mustaches sometime for when I make fun of people. Incorrect. Okay, I'm just kidding. See, the thing that's always bothered me about the Mirror Universe is just, really, guys? You're just all evil. No, they don't always do that. In fact, it seems to vary from writer to writer. Sometimes it's like a mirror of themselves, and sometimes everyone is evil and incredibly stupid. And yeah, it just seems to vary on the writer. Point being, no, that's the idea, Saldir. This kind of ties into what Snorr-Dutton says. The idea that the Trade Borg, the Hugh Borg, would actually be terrifying in their own right. In fact, the Civil War, one of the reasons I would have the Civil War happen is because otherwise the Trade Borg would become too much of a threat to the rest of the quadrant. But point being, actual answer for the Terran, for the Mirror Universe. Let me go and just say I've never liked the Mirror Universe. Like, there are Mirror Universe episodes I enjoy, and there are. But I've never liked the Mirror Universe, and I think I've made that very clear. So what you're telling me is to write for something I don't like. So give me a minute to think about this. Like, you've given me a good challenge. I gotta think about this. Okay. Step 1, Lita. Step 2, hang on, I'm still working on this. Dabo. No, Mir Lita. Empress Lita. No, and Smiley. That's true, Platty. It's just difficult. Okay, I do have a legitimate theory here, an idea. I don't like this idea, but this is how I would try to make this work. So, like, episode 1 or 2, maybe a little further on. Maybe, like, episode 2 or 3. Very early on, in Season 1. What I would have... So I'd have... Episode 1 is establishing what's going on. This is post-DS9, this is post-Nemesis. Arguably, this is post-Hobus Supernova. Hugh is still there. He's still struggling. They're still struggling, and they're currently being hunted. And episode 1 would be all about them basically trying to survive without killing anyone and trying to evade. Their entire mentality, their entire approach, their strategy is trying to get away from someone who's hunting them, and that would be like the bad guy for that episode. I don't even know who, and it doesn't actually matter. So, and that's establishing the characters, establishing their connection with people. Hugh would probably reach out to Data. Not much would happen from that. Yada, yada, yada. That's all episode 1, right? Episode 2, after, Hugh and his group would discuss things, since it's kind of their nature to do so, and basically decide the best possible way to simply escape, avoid, is to go to the Mirror Universe. So episode 2 would be the Mirror Universe episode. While in there, they would discover, of course, the Hugh in the Mirror Universe was destroyed, naturally. But instead, while they're trying to work their way through it, someone would get a hold of them. Probably Lita. Somebody, it doesn't matter who. And that Mirror Universe person would effectively be trying to teach them how to be raiders in exchange for some of the technology, because they see the obvious benefit of having Borg tech on their side. And Hugh and his group would be like, wait, so we go and we take? Yes, you take. And you need to make sure, don't kill too much, because then there won't be anything left to take later. But you need to just take what you need, maybe a little bit what you want, And just basically teaches the concepts and precepts of raiding to the Borg, which then leads to the original Season 1 story arc of them being raiders. Now, because I like continuity, I would have there be a second Mirror Universe episode. Just the 2. That's a lie. But what I would have is I would have the consequences of Hugh giving Borg tech to mere Terrans be a plot point. I would have that come back. Someone would probably come over into this reality, because we know they can do that more or less at will. basically begging for help because whoever they helped all the way back in episode 2 is someone who has used their Borg tech to become a very serious, horrifying threat. And that would be something that they would have to deal with. In fact, I kind of like the idea that that might lead to the... be one of the sparks, one of the multiple sparks that leads to the Hugh Borg Civil War in Season 3. We have just given Borg tech to these people, and this horrible stuff has happened. That was a result of a trade. You know, that kind of a thing. Wouldn't there be mere Borg? That is a good question. We have never heard even so much as a whisper of the Borg in the Mirror Universe. I actually like to think that the Borg don't exist in the Mirror Universe at all. Just a thought. That they never developed, in short. And they all have goatees. So anyways, that's what I would do. And there would be a good ending. We have to have a good ending. Season 3 would end positively. They're accepted into the Federation or something. I don't know. Good feels. You know how it is. Has to be a good ending. No, wait, I've got it. In Season 3, the sun explodes. And then the galaxy explodes and everyone dies. There we go. Okay, much better ending. Oh no, not the grub! Yeah, no kidding, Rex. Yeah, no, I think that's it. So, next we have a Warhammer 40k question. No, actually, I write good endings pretty much all the time. Basically, all of my stories end positively. Hope fulfilled, as I like to say. I just like people to earn it, that's all. Star Trek, Heat Death of the Universe. And then we skip forward like 7,000 years, and there are these people who carry on the story of the Hugh. And, never mind, I'm just joking. So this is a 40k question. Now, I'm actually kind of lost on this one. That's one of the reasons I'm asking this one on camera. So let's say you are now one of the lost Primarchs. So, what's your homework? What's your name? And the tactical doctrine of your legion? How would you have dealt with the Horus situation? And which universe would you take your legion off to and nope to if you had the option? So, initial question, you are now a Primarch. I wish Jaga was here for this. You are now a Primarch. You have to name your legion. You have to design the doctrine of your legion. And then you have to say how you would deal with the Horus situation. Obviously, the name of my legion would be the Incredibly Awesome Guys, who are also technically blue. Like the blueberries, maybe? Ouch, Malachor. Ooh, Gilfaberry, I like that. The Golden Horse. Really, Leander? I mean, valid. I have no idea. I don't know how to answer this question. I really don't. I mean, it's Warhammer 40k, and I'm kind of limited in what I could do within that setting, so I suppose... name of my legion, I have no idea. Let's go with the Nathrazim. There's a story behind that, don't ask. As for tactical doctrine, I mean, it's frickin' Warhammer 40k. How do you even have it? Is there a tactical doctrine in 40k? Is there? Kill everything in the face until it's dead is basically standard operating practices for everyone, not just the Space Marines. So I don't know how that... I mean, I guess it's about deployment? Glorious melee! There you go, chain swords. There you go, that's my tactical doctrine. No, I've got it. My tactical doctrine would be never block. Sure, Baronessa. A friend of mine, in a lot of games, including the Suikoden series, you have to name your army. And a friend of mine really liked the name Nathrazim. which is from Warcraft 3, obviously. And at the time, it's a Warcraft thing. And so he started naming his armies the Nathrezim, and so it kind of became a thing between us to just name every military unit, every army, henceforth, the Nathrezim. There's actually a little more to it than that, but that's the summary. This is why I'm asking you, Adam. What's your answer? You haven't actually answered me yet. Thou shalt always stomp on thy enemy's head twice. Parrying is acceptable. We can always parry, Baron. And taunt. Only in midair, though. An army of not rolling well. That actually does sound kind of like me, Agamemnon, yeah. I agree with adaptable doctrine. In fact, I actually firmly agree with adaptable doctrine. Because I firmly disagree with the idea of the fact that a rule applies universally in all circumstances. That's just nonsense to me. I mean, let's be honest, I play orcs when it comes to Warhammer 40k, so I'm kind of out of my league here. Because green is best. Find an alternative to the warp. Kill the Emperor. Kill everything else in the face. I like it, Dream Whisperer. I like it. One of the parts of this question is how would we have dealt with the Horus situation? Can we just kill Horus? Can we just deal with that before it got completely out of hand? I can just picture it. We deal with that, and the Emperor's like, "No, you killed my son," and it's like, "You moron! He was evil. He was corrupted by the warp. What is wrong with you?" "But he's my son." "No, he's not." Whap, whap, whap. Now, I like this thing. Which universe would you take your Legion to and no Boff to if you had the option? So all of a sudden I just have an entire legion of Space Marines at my back. I'll go to real life, I think, with that one. I'll just show up. Hey, guys, yeah, I got Space Marines at my back, so, pull out a giant bell hammer. Kong. I got nothing. I got nothing. I do like adaptable doctrine. I do like that as an idea. I don't even know what the homework question actually is. I feel like I'm missing context on that one. Moving on, I guess. Let's go ahead and discuss spoilers. Spoilers. Real life, Agamemnon. Real life. It's the only one that matters. Alright, so let's go and get rid of this, because we're on to spoilers now. Spoilers. Oh my god. Oh, I am so tired. My brain is just going, How would I remove the elves? Alright, so hang on. I always like to do a nice, big, upfront spoiler warning before we discuss actual spoilers. So do me a favor. Do not actually spoil anything yet, okay? In fact, I'm actually going to take this back down. So, nobody actually spoil until we put that up. I like to give a nice big option for people who are watching this live and for people who are watching the VOD. I like to give them plenty of time to rush over to the computer and mute it or close the video. So, without getting into spoilers, the very first thing... Yes, we're back to Devil May Cry 5 next time. Without going into spoilers, let me just say something really quick before we discuss this film. Let's leave the controversy thing and both sides of the controversy thing out the window where it belongs. None of that has any place in my show, and I don't want any of it here, okay? I don't want anyone making jokes about it. I don't want anyone poking at one side or the other. I don't care which side you support. Leave it over there, please. The fact that I have to say that is irritating to me, which is why I sound irritated right now. Okay? Before I got ready for this, just for the heck of it, I decided to look up a few things. There was a... Have fun, Isermaster. You know what? I wish I didn't know what the controversy was, because I don't like it. I don't like the fact that it exists at all. And I'm not going to discuss it. I'm not even going to bring it up, other than what I've already said. And one more thing, which is, I went to look up a few things, and I found... so there's a video called Pitch Meetings, a YouTube series called Pitch Meetings. And they did a recent thing. They did a recent thing on Captain Marvel. And the YouTube comment section was literally just filled with people. Just filled to the brim with people who were on one side or the other of the controversy. And it was all just a lot of noise. And I'm like, okay. And so, just for the heck of it, I decided to go look at the current Rotten Tomatoes rating. The number of half-star or one-star ratings, which were... there was two types of them. One was people saying, this is the worst film ever made. This is the worst Marvel film ever made. This is a disgusting film. This is a horrible film. But there were a lot of literally copy-paste, as in text for text, line for line. Every character was exactly identical in the giving it a 1 rating thing. So bots, in other words. Or someone who decided to go through and do it manually. I have no idea, Adam. Until we're done. That's my usual rule. So, out the window. I don't want to deal with it. And that's for both sides, to be completely clear. Where's the spoilers thing? Okay, so now we're going to bring up the spoilers. We've given everyone some time. You're right, Yudachi. Sorry, I should clarify, there are also 10s that were also copy-paste and bots. Like I said, I'm actually very against both sides of this controversy. I want to make that very clear. They're both dumb. And I feel free to say that because that's what I legitimately feel. If you want to come after me for it, I'm right here. Now. I liked the film. I felt it had some issues. I mean, of course it did. I would say it's about average quality overall, especially when looking at the MCU stuff as a whole. You know, I would put it in the middle range. You know, most of the people I went with also kind of agreed with that same general perspective. Goose was awesome. The film did make me laugh legitimately more than a few times. There was actually several seconds where I was like, ah. Now, I have to admit, we did have a good audience. How good of an audience did we have? Excuse me. For those of you not aware, right at the beginning, they redid the Marvel logo with Stan Lee. All of the Stan Lee cameos. And then right after the thing, it said, you know, thank you, Stan. My audience broke into applause. That's the audience I had. I had a good audience. So, gosh, let's talk about Marvel herself, just to start, because I feel like she's one of the weakest aspects of the film. What? So she kept doing this thing, and I don't have a term for it, but her portrayal was consistently, I think the word I want to use is flippant. She was a very flippant character. She would do things just kind of, you know, as a casual thing. A perfect example of this is when she had the map, and she'd just be like, pull the map down with her finger, then pull the map up, and pull the map down, and pull the map up. Or the bit, like, right towards the end, this is a perfect example, when she jump-starts Yanrog's ship, and she just kind of just like that, and jump-starts the ship and takes it. There's like a very casually flippant thing that she did pretty much throughout the entire film, which she was good at, to be clear. And she also did have one scene I think was actually legitimately great, and I do mean that. And that would be the scene with her and her friend, whose name I can't think of right now. That was actually a really, really good scene, in my opinion. Especially since it was built up to. It would have been easy to look at her and, like, imagine if the scene with her and her friend and the reunion there had just happened with none of the build-up leading up to it. Maria? Was that her name? If it wasn't for the build-up to that scene, I think it would have fallen flat. However, it is Rambo. That's right, you're right. However, because of the build-up to that scene, I think it nailed it. I think the woman playing Rambo was excellent. I think she did a great job of her role. And that was a nice, real, down-to-earth, human scene. Oh, Jesus. Here we go. Hang on. I think that's it. Okay. Thank you very, very much to Zara. As ever, much appreciated. Really. Would you like to put all those subs towards anything? And thank you again very, very much. I feel that... I've heard a lot of people say her portrayal was wooden. I don't actually agree with that at all. I just don't think the main character was all that interesting overall. I've never been a Marvel fan, it's worth noting, and by that I mean I've never been a Captain Marvel fan. But she did a lot of little character moments good. She had good chemistry with Jackson. I mean, of course, Samuel L. Jackson was great in this film, so whatever. And she did have a lot of little good moments with the kid, with Rambo, excuse me. In fact, I also really liked the scene... where she... In fact, if I was to say this, what I would say is that I think almost all of her scenes with someone on her side were good. Her and Jude Law, good. When he was still on her side. Her and Jackson, good. Her and Rambo, who replaced her, good. You know, it was... I feel like she kind of fell flat for me whenever she was actually going up against someone she was fighting. Those scenes just kind of didn't quite work for me. They weren't bad, don't mistake me. It was just kind of like... Okay. You know what I mean? I could see that, Salzer. I could see that. Yeah, the de-aging CGI was crazy. And apparently cost a lot of money. But they threw themselves into it, and I think it shows, personally. Let me just say, by the way, that I absolutely adore Fury in this one. Like, gushing love for Fury in this film. He was exactly how he should be. Because if you were paying attention, he kind of shifted from old Fury to new Fury throughout the film. And even old Fury, the one at the beginning of the film, was really adaptable. And that's one of the things I love about him. As soon as aliens start actually shooting with guns... he's on it and starts chasing to try and figure out what's going on. As soon as he realizes that he's in the car with a shapeshifter, which only takes him a couple of seconds to process, he manages to pull a maneuver to actually defeat and kill the guy. As soon as he realizes, and he realizes instantly that someone has replaced his boss, once again, he has a plan to deal with that pretty much immediately. You know, just his adaptability and on his long-term thinking on display were phenomenal. And again, very Fury. In fact, I think this might actually be the most Fury we've actually seen in the MCU total, like in one film. I could be wrong about that. Yeah, exactly, Blackfall. Now, I also love how he manages this... This is just Jackson being Jackson, but he has this wonderful portrayal of someone who's just... serious, but you can't quite tell when he's being serious and when he's joking, because his delivery is perfectly straight the whole way. Like a lot of the scenes with him in the house, and he's got the sweet tea, you know, just having a drink every now and again, talking about matters of galactic affairs. You know, my kids would call me Fury. You know, a lot of little fun stuff like that. I also, I want to give huge praise. Hang on, I need to look up the actor's name. I want to give huge praise to Bobface, whose name I don't remember, but I did not look it up, apparently. Whatever, I'm dumb. His name is... Dramatic pause. Ben Mendelsohn. That was an inspired choice, in my opinion. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Ben Mendelsohn played Talos and also his boss. Now, first of all, I loved the fact... I picked up on that almost immediately, as an aside. I'm sure most of you guys did too. But I picked up almost immediately that it was actually the same actor playing Talos and his boss, which was a nice choice, first of all. But second of all, Mendelsohn almost always plays evil corporate bad guy types. That's pretty much his archetype. He's really good at it. And so for him playing someone who was Talos, like it was just strange, but he managed to nail it. By the way, fun fact, I've heard some people complain about his accent as Talos. That's actually his natural accent. That's how his voice normally sounds. He was just portraying a normal voice. I found that fantastic. But yeah, Mendelsohn nailed it. Which was, again, really great choice to have him be the Skrull leader. I'm looking at the characters here. Korath was obviously back, duh. He lives. Ronan the Accuser, again, duh. Lashanya Lynch, she's the one who plays Rambo, and again, she did an excellent job too. And Annette Bening didn't have much in the film, but I felt she did a good job with what she had there, since she was effectively playing two different characters. And of course, I would go remiss if I didn't give praise to Clark Gregg, because, I mean, first of all, you could kind of see how Coulson was already there, right? But my favorite part about Coulson, there's this really brief snippet where he talks about, oh my god, our orders to take him in dead or alive. Really? Dead or alive? And then there's the bit where Coulson's there, and he sees them, and they just freeze up like, oh god, what is he going to do? And you just see Coulson think about it for a second. He's like, nope, I don't see him down here. I loved that bit. It's so small, and it's so predictable, and I don't care, because I love that bit. Because that's Coulson. You know? There's a reason he became the agent. And got his own show, actually. Jude Law actually did a great job as Yanrog, too. As an aside. I mean, Jude Law is obviously an excellent actor, so that's not really a big surprise. Yeah, no kidding, Souther. But I want to give special praise to his portrayal as Yanrog. Because he managed to portray someone who was not evil, but was technically the most evil thing in the setting, in the game, or the film. Because he represented effectively exactly what something like the Supreme Intelligence would want. A soldier who follows orders without question. And there's something wonderfully terrifying about how he portrays that. He himself did not come across as cruel or horrifying. In fact, if you'll pay attention, a lot of his subordinates had the cruelty factor attached to them, so he didn't have to actually have that be a part of his character. But he was still horrifying in his own way, specifically because of the fact that he was a dutiful soldier. And I liked that. Also, I'm going to go and admit something that you're going to be making fun of me for. Yeah, exactly, Bernessa. The Stan Lee cameo, where she just kind of grins at him for a second. Sis and I, she was sitting right next to me, Sis and I theorized that what actually happened is they might have gone back and refilmed her reaction to that. Because if you pay attention to the editing, she's walking through, she looks down, cuts to Stan Lee. There's no one else in the shot but Stan Lee. Then it cuts up to her, it cuts up to a different angle of her reaction, and then it goes back to the same angle it's been doing from. So in other words, that could have been a completely separate shot, filmed completely separate from the rest of it. And she gives that little grin. She and I theorized that they did that. Okay, apparently they did it and add that after he died. Okay, because it sure as hell looked like it. It was a nice touch. The Watcher. Now, so I guess let's talk about the film proper. First of all, I felt like the weakest part of the film was the lead-up to Earth. That entire section, frankly, felt kind of boring. It had a couple of good things. Yeah, I liked that too, Justin. It had a couple of good things to it. And in fact, I want to talk about some of the couple good things in there. But for the most part, I was just sitting here like, okay. You know, it wasn't catching me. Nothing was actually catching me. But what kept weirding me out Yeah, it wasn't a slow burn. It was just kind of like watching someone stumble as they're getting the kinks out of their legs. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, I've read the comics, but obviously the MCU is not directly parallel to the comics, right? I mean, duh. So, even in the films, however, and keeping in mind, I've actually recovered Phase 2 of the MCU very recently. Even within the films, the Kree are horrible. The Kree are the bad guys. They are the evil, militant, religiously zealous, conquering power. So, I agree, Golvag. So we see, warrior heroes. We see the perspective inside the Kree conglomerate, and the supreme intelligence, and the AIs that run, constructed of all their greatest mind, and blah, blah, blah. What we see is an interesting bit of film narrative, because the whole thing is portrayed as if they're fighting against this horrible, terrifying death doom, which is the Skrulls. Yeah, for those of you not aware, in the comics, the Skrulls are just as bad as the Kree. Exactly, Papanix. So in the comics, the Skrullers are just as bad. Now, this is our first exposure to the Skrulls in the MCU. But what I noticed, even early on, was even though the Kree were being portrayed in basically, the normal light, there were several things they were doing which struck me as odd. Like, let me give you 2 examples right off the top of my head. First point, when they go to extract their spy, while they're there, there's just, I want you to go bomb an entire continent as a distraction. Now, again, that makes sense because that's Kree. That is absolutely the Kree mentality. But there's a bit where a Skrull infiltrates someone to go and try and convince her to not shoot on the people. She's like, it's okay, they're just civilians. He didn't attack her. Could have. Like, you caught that, right? He could have just stabbed her in the back, could have done anything else if he wanted to. But instead... Wow, Agamemnon. Yeah, the team was totally ready to kill civilians. Just, and keep in mind, they thought they were civilians at that point in time. But the Skrull was basically just trying to cease them from attacking the civilians rather than launching a surprise attack, which was within their capacity to do. It was only when they were revealed that they'd, were like, okay, well, now we got to attack and see what we can do. Then we have a scene that was very strange to me, and it makes perfect sense in hindsight, but at the time I was really weirded out about it. They have a scene where we listen to, Talos, we find out later, and a few other people talking over her memories as they're playing through her memories with the mind-scanning device in the subconscious. Now, I bring that up because, how do I phrase this? Fiction, games, movies, and television, they have a certain way they portray bad guys. There's like a certain tone, there's certain types of speech patterns, there's certain... Like, I'm talking normally to you guys right now, which is kind of what they were talking like in these scenes. But usually a villain doesn't talk in a normal tone. A villain will talk in a tone that has a specific more cadence to it. I want to make sure that we have all the memories. Go back another 5 steps. Or even if it's not so aggressive, usually there's sort of a smarmy nature to it. Yes, I think we do see a little bit more. Go ahead and rewind a bit. I feel like we're almost to the memory we need. There's something that usually is done to make villains sound villainous. And none of that was done to the Skrull. They just sounded like people. At the time, that struck me as weird. Obviously, with the advantage of hindsight, it makes sense. Did I lose chat? Pause. Nope, okay, chat's back. Jack's back. Just stalled or something. Okay, we're cool. We're cool. Or just have a villain with a British accent. Yeah. I mean, Anthony probably sounds like he's kidding there, but no, for real, that is actually a thing that a lot of movies did, especially in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You want a villain, you get someone with a British accent. That was just copy paste. There's actually a reason so many Imperial soldiers and officers across Star Wars have British accents. It's because of that very concept. So, and the Bond movies are another excellent example of that. Yes. So, anyways, so I do love what they did with the Skrull there in terms of their portrayal, because the whole time I'm thinking. And then when she breaks out, notice they don't try to kill her. At first I thought that was bad writing, because I'm like, oh yeah, sure, they've all got these guns, and they're just going to try and take her, you know, and not actually shoot her or try to kill her. It makes more sense in hindsight that they really weren't trying to kill her. Obviously, she was still the villain to them, but of course, obviously they had value in her. And then when she corners Talos, he just talks. He's just trying to get through to her. More than anything else, especially given that he actually saw her, that is to say, Marvel, in there. Yeah, there were quite a few little hints there, Justin. It would kept weirding me out a bit early on, because again, I've read the comics, and I know how bad the Skrull are in the comics. Oh, what's it called? Not Secret War. Oh, what's the name of that? There's an entire story arc about a Skrull invasion. I do like how they portrayed the Skrull morphing, by the way. That was pretty cool. So then she crash lands, you know, on Earth. Woo! Secret Invasion. Thank you, Secret Invasion. So then she crash lands, and then the movie starts. Yay! The movie actually starts. No joke, when the camera panned down to see the blockbuster, there was a smattering of just laughter and applause in the audience. No joke. And Third leans over and is like, that was the last one. That started the whole... That was the domino that destroyed Blockbuster right there. Oh, yeah. So, what Baronessa mentions is something that I really have to comment on. This is not something I usually comment on, but ever since I've started, you know, analyzing fiction as a job, I've started noticing these things more and more. This film was really, really well directed visually and brilliantly edited. And I mean that sincerely. This is actually one of the better presentations of editing in a film that I've seen in a long time. They had a lot of very smart, very clever little tricks that they did. A lot of very smart portrayal of movement. Let me give you a direct example so you know what I'm talking about. There's the scene where Nick Fury and Carol are going through... They're going through the archives area. And as they go through, the lights turn on with motion sensors, right? Which is a good establishment of that for a later point, first of all. But second of all, the camera starts like with them, and then it switches within the space of one of the beats of one of the lights turning on. The camera switches to the far part of the corridor without missing anything. It's the exact same pacing. Chunk, chunk, chunk. And then after having gone 3 or 4 different paces, keeping the same exact beat, the camera went right back to where they were, showing where they were now going to turn off in the thing. Little stuff like that was all over the place, and it was brilliant. Now, Anthony says some reviews said this film didn't have a distinct style. Those people are wrong and stupid. I'm sorry. I shouldn't sound so derogatory towards other people's opinions, but I cannot begin to disagree with that more. This is brilliantly edited and brilliantly visually presented. There were many really excellent showcasings of exactly how they would visually show the information. Let me give you another example, because this is what reminded me of this. So, Talos is going through her memories, and it's one uninterrupted shot, although it's actually a trick, but let's just skip over that. So it's one seemingly uninterrupted shot, and she's just standing there, and Annette Bening walks up and says, hey, and says her lines. She says, yeah. And then Annette Bening kind of walks off this way, and then you see Annette Bening come in here and say, hey, and say the line again. And then the camera kind of goes over here, and it's like, and hey, and it was just this one weird shot of effectively the same memory effectively being lapped, like layered on top of itself as they were doing that. It was a great showcasing of that idea. And they did a lot of stuff like that. Forgive me for not... If I ever do a rumination on this film, there's going to be a lot of me pointing out those kind of moments, because there's a lot of them throughout the film, and they're really good, in my opinion. Yeah, the Radio Shack. Rap, 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 rap. Roll down the window. Yeah, I need a communications device. Points to Radio Shack. I love that. Oh my goodness. You remember when Radio Shack was actually good? Because I do. I was in 6th grade the last time Radio Shack was good. Oh, I bet, Collison. Oh gosh, so what happened next? So then we have the big train sequence. I loved how a bunch of people on the train were trying to protect the old woman, despite seeing what the old woman was doing. Something about that just appealed to me, because that's exactly what would happen. I'm dead serious. You see, maybe not nowadays, but back in the 90s, you see an old woman, and you see Malsiniton there. They're going to defend the old woman from Malsiniton's assault, right? Just, no, stop, it's an old lady, you know. That was great. That was great. I also love how both of them had just a general lack of understanding of, you know, anything. But I absolutely love, hey, this is Agent Coulson. Where are you guys? Of course, I already talked about that. Thank you very, very much, Malsiniton. As ever, much appreciate your support, even though I'm awful about pronouncing your name. Would you like to put that sub towards something for a future stream? Yeah, one of my favorite parts is she gets off the train and there's just hundreds of people everywhere. Now, again, I mentioned visual. I mentioned editing. What they do is they have a bunch of people walking by her, and then the camera pulls out, and then they have even more people. They have easily over 100 extras running around on the camera time. Now, first of all, just real quick, that's harder to do than it sounds. Getting that many people coordinated like that for a shot. Because remember, even one of those is an actual actor. They're not being paid that much money because they're not part of the SAG. But nevertheless, they have to get that person and tell them, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to look busy and I want you to go this way and go down this hallway at exactly this point in time, okay? And we want this all to be coordinated so it all looks like one smooth movement of people. So credit on that part, but you might be like, why am I putting this out? Because, again, it showcases why the Skrull are a threat. Remember, there's only like 4 Skrull here. 3 now, because one of them just was killed by Fury. But any Skrull is a threat when there's lots of people. We've actually seen by this point their actual transforming. It takes them seconds. It takes them no time at all. So, Skrull, large population, danger. And I love how it presents that very quickly and very efficiently. So on the off chance you don't know the Skrull and exactly what kind of a threat they pose, that scene very clearly gets it across. Just bam. And I love that. Yeah, I liked that too, Anthony. I agree with that. I like Trickster's Lab too, but you know, that's an unrelated thing. Thank you very, very much, Trickster's Lab. As ever, much appreciate your sub and support. Do you want to put that sub towards something? Exactly, Sile there. I really was thinking the Founder thing too. It's exactly what the Founder's threat was over in Star Trek. There are only 4 of us. You remember that scene? O'Brien, Cisco, Earth. Look at us. There's only 4 of us here, and look at the havoc we've wrought. That is exactly the threat of the shapeshifter. It's a very classic, very, very, very old literary trope, but they do a good job with it. They really do. And I love how they presented that, which, of course, made things interesting later, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So then she goes, and, you know, she steals the guy's outfit. One of the things I like, and I want to say this now because I want to lead up to this later. One of the things I like is as we get snippets of her life, we keep seeing her fail. Now, I like that because throughout the first 3/4 of the film, exactly, it tastes good. Throughout the 3/4, you got it, Trickster. Throughout the 3/4 of the film, it's portrayed as if she has an emotional problem. Remember, that was what Jan Rog said right at the beginning. You can't control your emotions. And so the way all the scenes of her screwing up, like her messing up the cart, or her screwing up at camp, or her having the crash issues, all of it's portrayed slanted as if this is her losing control. As if this is her being an out-of-control rogue soldier, right? Oh my god. I knew it! Thank you very, very much, Speaker. As ever, I do much appreciate those subs. Thank you. Do you want to put that sub towards something for a future stream? And I guess I'll talk about that now, because Yeah, no kidding, Bernessa. Because what I love most is the scene towards the end where Annette Bening, this is a great scene. In my opinion, it was the second most emotionally impacting scene of the film. I remember the trailers when it's like her standing up and her standing up and her standing up. I was just like, what is this crap? But the reason I thought that was because there was no establishment, no reason, no continuity to it. In the film proper, with Annette Bening's character, with the Supreme Intelligence, telling her, we are the ones who made you. We're the ones who made, did all this to you. Without us, all you do is fail over and over and over. You are only human. And in my head, I remember thinking at the time, yes, she is human. Because it is human to fail and get back up. And that was, that was great. Because then, that moment was just so awesome. Like I said, it might be my actual favorite moment of the film now, legitimately. Her, showing how she kept getting up as a kid, as a teenager, as a teenager, as an adult. How every time she fell, she stood right back up. That was fantastic. That was just great. And I love how it's slanted for the whole film, like it's just her screwing up. But as we see towards the end, it was actually just her screwing up and then continuing. There's an old Roman saying, I know that's a weird thing to bring up, but hear me out. I don't know the Latin. I meant to look it up, but I forgot to. There's an old Roman saying that basically says, you are not defeated until you decide to be. And I was thinking of that when I saw that scene. Yeah. And then she goes superpowered, because that's how most of origin films end, with the hero just becoming Doom. Just, hi, yeah, hi, I'm Death, walking now. Destroys an entire Kree ship. Now, let's rewind a bit. Let's go back. So she hooks up with Fury. So we learn an interesting amount of history about Fury there. Really. It's actually some good stuff. Which, it's doubly funny because she's basically just doing it to mess with him, but I do like how we do actually, as a consequence of her messing with him, get some legitimate backstory for Nick Fury and some characterization for him. Again, I love how much Fury we got in this film. It makes me wish we had gotten more Fury up until now. Yeah, Ronan was like, yeah, we're leaving, bye. I was actually wondering how Ronan was going to survive that encounter. Yeah, by the way, the Accusers, for those of you not really aware, the Accusers really are just basically the Kree Inquisition. They are religious zealot purifiers. And that's what they do. Kind of fits, seeing Guardians at this point in time. With hindsight. But anyways, moving on. Sisters of Battle. Good Warhammer 40k parallel. So then we have a sequence of events, some really good buddy cop stuff. I'm just going to kind of gloss over that because it was all good. One of the things I noticed, there's... yeah, exactly, Justin. There's a really nice bit where... I can't think of his name. It was Talos. Talos is fighting Nick Fury, beating the crap out of him. And I mention this because, as Talos points out, he's not really a good guy. He's just not as bad as he was portrayed to be. In other words, okay, let me just go ahead and say this. For the longest time, I kept thinking of the Skrull, after the reveal, as the Bajorans. Hear me out. Because, and one of the things DS9 did well was the Bajorans were obviously the victims. Just like the Skrull are obviously the victims. But both still did pretty horrible stuff, both out of a sense of vengeance and out of a desire to continue to exist, to strike back at their aggressor. And I like how he is portrayed as someone who is willing to, destroy and kill and do whatever he has to in order to survive, but still is the victim in all of this, In fact, I was actually really sad because I thought he was going to die throughout the course of the film. I'm like, no! He finally reunites with his wife, finally sees... They never say it, but he sees his son for the first time. I'm presuming, but it seemed to me like that was the first time he'd ever seen his child. If, at the very least, it was the first time he'd seen his child in years. One of the two. And that was just a really great, very powerful scene. Like that bit where they find the Tesseract. I'll talk about that in a second. They find the Tesseract. There's, they're looking around like, what? And then, all of the people, yeah, exactly, Salder. All the people come in. There's the kids, and they're like, he wasn't here for the power source. He was here for his family. That just like, ton of bricks right there. Oh. Because that explains so much of his drive, so much of why he's been willing to do so much, go so far, even to the point of basically walking up to someone who could kill him, arms out, unshapeshifted. Just be like, listen, please talk to me. Okay? I'm just my shape, this is me, not a thing, I'm just want to talk to that, fair enough, we're here, just, can we please, I want you to listen to this. That was a really interesting scene, because the catch was, the Kree are horrible. But the moment he approached them openly, that was the moment it finally clicked with me, all of the little hints beforehand about the Skrull. I was like, oh, they're not the bad guys. And it just kind of just came to me at that moment. And Sis was like, shush. And I was like, sorry. I said it quietly, but I mean, she's sitting right next to me, so she heard me. But I have to bring up something else about that scene, because it was a pretty good scene overall, but then immediately after that, they put the CD into the computer, and then this happens. And there's this really great tense issue. There's this tense moment. Everyone's looking around. Someone says, what's happening? Fury, who is, of course, used to the tech, is just like, it's loading. It's just loading. What? The audience erupted into laughter at that scene. Yeah, we just lost it. Oh, that was awesome. That was good. That was funny. So we find out, and again, good visual presentation. We basically switch from an audio file. So what they did was they recorded the entire scenes of the actual plane crash and then leading up to the concurrent scenes. And then they pulled the audio from part of that and pulled that out as the audio file that was actually being played in the set, and then perfectly segued it and timed it up so it then lead into the rest of the scene that they'd actually filmed. So the audio was seamless between the two. They actually do a lot of seamless memory to reality stuff. Again, good editing, smart visual direction. And like I said, they do that a lot in this film. Her looking around the bar, another good example of that. Nope, it's out the window, Plutonia. Not even discussing it. We have a controversial channel if you want to talk about it there. So, I don't even know who I am. We're trying to bit the other, great scene, big hug, figure out how we're going to do this. We're going to go up to the thing, blah, 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 blah. We then lead to the refugee scene. I want to talk about the Tesseract really quickly. There's some potential here for some setting stuff. Hi, Overlord Mick. It's okay. We've only been streaming for an hour and 51 minutes. What I mean by setting stuff is Captain Marvel's source of power is an Infinity Stone. Like, you caught that, right? The Tesseract is the power source that was powering the engine, whose power went into her. There's really only two ways this can function. Either this was a singular dump, or it is a connected loop. And I'm not sure which, but either way, Marvel herself is consistently portrayed as an energy source. You notice that there's actually several visual presentations. They never say that, but there's a lot of visual exposition, her powering up the ship or depowering the ship. When she lands on the planet, the electrical lines reacting to it, little things like that showcase that she effectively is a walking Tesseract now. That's the source of her abilities. And that's true. Scarlet Witch also got her power from an Infinity Stone. The questions that I have, the first and most important question is that power still connected to the stone? Because that's a real question for me. Because the stone, by the time the mid-credit scene happens, is over on a gauntlet, over there, on a big purple guy. Well, actually, he's taken it off by now. Oh, no, he hasn't taken it off. It's still on. Yeah, you see the idea here If she's still connected, then that basically gives her a weakness to Thanos. If it was a finite amount of energy that went through, then now we have the problem of at what point will she tap out? Now, the thing is, I've always taken... Now, I don't know if this is true, but I've always assumed that the Tesseract was effectively a device that generated energy from the stone. In other words, the stone is gasoline. The Tesseract is the engine. Make sense? The generator, if you will. I've always thought of it in that way, personally. And I bring that up because the way the Tesseract is consistently portrayed in all of Phase 1... and a decent chunk of the rest of the MCU, including this very film, is an energy source. Specifically an energy source. And that's its primary purpose, is making the energy happen. I bring that up because that could mean that while she has imbued with effectively stone power, it's stone power that has been filtered through the engine, or the generator in this case, pouring the actual literal energy into her, which would then make sense, because hypothetically then any stone could accomplish the same thing with the same mechanism. Now, one of the people I went to the theater with actually thought the same thing, Justin, that there was a one-time energy dump. That, to me, brings up the question, is it finite? Is it maintained? Can it be restored, regenerated? Can she sleep or, absorb a star or whatever in order to regenerate her battery, so to speak? There's a lot of questions there that I don't actually have answers to. Which is what, of course, Baronessa discusses here as well. Like I said, this is an interesting setting question to me. To me, this is just my headcanon, pure headcanon, but I think it is that she can absorb, and therefore she can push out. So, and probably from multiple different sources, because again, we saw her interact with several different electronic devices of various types in order to both draw and push energy out into throughout the course of the film. Let's go down to this playlist. Now, it's entirely possible... Hi, Aethel. Yes, it was his sled. Now, I've never heard that theory, Popanix. That's actually a theory I've not heard. That she is now effectively a stone, I guess is the way to put that. That she is literally an infinite source of energy. Let me just go ahead and start by saying that I don't like that. For obvious reasons. But it's certainly possible. Lord knows that she is being portrayed and has been portrayed consistently as someone who is very high tier. I mean, she did take out a spaceship by herself, which several other people could also accomplish, but that's still damned impressive, right? You'll notice that she didn't even need the helmet after a certain point. By the way, real quick aside, God, that helmet looked so dorky. Was that just me? Anyways, most helmets look dorky. What do you want? Yeah, I liked that too, Justin. Did I like the film, Aethel? No, it's the worst film in the entire known universe. Yeah, I liked it. Now... This is going to sound strange. When Jude Law decided to confront her and say, all right, you're going to have to beat me without your powers, I could tell that was going to go one of two ways. This may just be me, but I would have liked it both ways it could have gone. Because she could have just fought him hand to hand and then defeat him, or she could have just blasted him. But I was in favor of both for completely different reasons. One, because it is in her overall personality to be able to prove that, yeah, no, I can take you on, and I am actually good enough to do this. And two, she also has nothing to prove to him. Both of those are actually legitimately good ways to do that. Like, as a writer, narratively speaking, looking at those two, I was like, yeah, no, I would be torn on which of those to choose as a writer, because I like both. I'm totally with that. Now, you'll notice, by the way, how he was like a discount Magneto with his gravity gauntlets. Anyways. Yeah, like I said, Rax, I could have seen both. I liked both perspectives. Now, I did like how she's like, yeah, you're going back with a message. So you're going to tell them that I'm coming. Bye. It also makes sense to me that Marvel would leave, C-53, because she really does not want the the Kree Empire's attention on Earth. They were nowhere near ready for that. But I'll talk about that in just a second. So then she has her big goodbye. Woo! I liked the neon Tron suit. By the way, it's really off topic. I just wanted to comment on that. So she goes off. She helps the Skrulls. And like 20 years pass. And we have no idea what she's been doing for 20 years. The mid-credit scene was actually very interesting to me. Actually, hang on. Before we talk about the mid-credit scene, let's take a quick aside. Pause. There we go. What'd you guys think of Goose? So I gotta be honest, I actually thought Goose was just a cat, and that was basically that was the joke. That was the joke, that it's Goose and it's a cat, and they're so scared of a cat, and then and I love Fury's reaction to that. Fury's reaction was perfect. I'm gonna pick you up now, okay? As a quick aside, you'll notice how Goose obviously can tell when a Skrull has changed person. Now that's impressive. That is damned impressive, considering if you remember, a Skrull actually changes right down to the DNA. And I point that out because if you remember, there was a bit where Fury was like, "Go, kitty," and the cat's just like, "Nah." And then the cat goes over and rubs up against their boots. Because it was Talos. And Goose knew. I found that interesting. Just a tiny little tidbit there that I found interesting. I also like how Talos wanted her to shield his child's eyes from the killing he was about to do. That was a nice touch, too. Yeah, exactly, Giolito. That's one of the reasons the Skrulls are so damn terrifying over in the comics. But I have to admit, I really loved, like, Goose was just amazing. But I think what I loved most was that Fury just lost it when he saw the Goose. There was no mind control. There's no beam of charisma. It's just, oh, it's a kitty. Who's a cute kitty? Who's a cute kitty? Who's a good kitty? Oh, you're so cute. You're just so cute. Who's such a good cat? Who's such a good cat? Come on, Fury. And the cat just follows them the whole time. I like to think that the cat came with Marvel and has just been hanging out this whole time. Possibly, Bernus? I'm not actually sure. Oh, yeah, Fury's eye. I didn't like that. Let me just go ahead and admit that. I didn't. If you were paying attention, there was actually, I want to say 2 times before that where there was a fake out. Oh, my God, how's your eye? Oh, it's fine. Hey, how's you doing? Oh, how's your eye? Oh, it's fine. And then scratch. Oh, and then he's lost his eye to a cat. That's... I mean, I know it's not a cat. It's a... But still. Really? That was... I get that it's the point. I get the point. I get that it's a joke. I didn't think it was funny. I think it was kind of lame. It's just my opinion on that. One thing I did like, though, one last point about Goose before I move on. Yeah, exactly, Rex. I mean, come on. So Goose, the end credit scene, the very last post-credits thing, it shows the cat on the table, and someone over to my left just kind of goes, you know, that sound that cats make when they're about to throw up a hairball, and I'm just like, oh, no. Because it makes perfect sense that, you know, the creature that Goose was would be able to digest the people it ate, but not the Tesseract. So... Which brings me to my final point about the Tesseract. I actually thought about this and did a little looking up. No, the Tesseract wasn't active, Silder, remember? It has to be on for that to happen. As we saw in Captain America, the first one. So the Tesseract... It's back in the past. It's on Earth. Yeah, crash into the ice. Psh. If you remember, Howard Stark's team actually went and found the thing but didn't find Cap. You remember that? That's actually kind of an important point, because they were able to find the Tesseract based on the energy signature. Got it up from the bottom of the ocean. Couldn't find Cap. They didn't find Cap for years after. It took them a long time to finally discover where Cap was. Much closer to the time when Avengers actually happens. That's why he only wakes up right before Avengers. So, this then explains how the Tesseract, in this 40-year chunk of time here, was able to actually make its way into the hands of Mar-Vell. And she was able to then basically take it with the incredibly high access governmental... Because she obviously was either... Well, she was obviously connected to S.H.I.E.L.D. and also the United States government because of the whole super secret mega password place that they had, and therefore had access to this thing to start working on it. I point this out because I've heard several people say her having the Tesseract is a plot hole. I don't see any plot hole here. There's plenty of time. In fact, there's about 30 years or so of time for it to have gotten from Howard Stark into her hands, and then her taking it up and, you know, using it to generate this engine thing. That's us. I should have also pointed out that Project Pegasus. Sorry, there were several callbacks. Several callbacks. Project Pegasus was the base that is ended up destroyed at the beginning of Avengers 1. And obviously, you know, I liked the Protector Initiative. And he's writing, and it was only there for screen. Thankfully, I read very quickly. The whole thing was basically exactly the speech he gives to the Council back in Avengers 1. We need a response team. A team that can do what an army can't, what weapons can't. We need a team of heroes who are able to react to things on the fly, that kind of a thing. I thought that was a nice little touch there. Anyways. Mid-credit scene. Right, that's what I was leading up to. So, mid-credit scene. First of all, from what I understand, that is literally a scene from Endgame. Kind of like how the post-credits from Captain America was literally a scene, or several scenes actually, from Avengers 1. I like that too, Overlord Mick. It was a little bit on the nose, Justin, but whatever. It's pretty clear that Carol was in many ways the inspiration for the idea of heroes to Fury. I just wish... I don't know. I'm with it. I'm with it. But anyway, so yeah, we see this scene in Endgame, and it's them, death toll rising. They're all still in complete emotional shock. In fact, I want to give praise to all of those actors, because even though it's a short scene, you can tell that all of them are basically dead inside. Like, there's a very particular way that someone acts when they are emotionally dead. I should know. And I've seen it several times in life, too. And it's not... Some people are like, that's not how you act. No, there's just sort of a distanceness. Your eyes are not really focusing on anything. Yeah, exactly, Baroness. You could tell. You could tell, even from those few seconds, that they were just gone. And yeah, I've had better nightmares. That was another nice, very little good bit. Once again, gets across the severity of the wake of Infinity War. Very, very well. Then we see the pager, which they have been continuing to power. They don't say this, but again, they mention that they have been trying to keep this thing going for however long, trying to bypass the power source, trying to get another juice hooked up to it. Just keep this pager going. We have no idea what it is or where it's going, but Fury wanted it on, therefore we're going to keep sending out this signal, whatever the hell that means. I liked that. Because not only does it show a trust in Fury, earned, but it also shows a desperation and having no idea what to do in general. Also, you'll notice how the death toll was still rising as the tabulation was still coming in. I want to point that out because according to several sources, Endgame will be happening several months after Infinity War. I actually pointed out in some of my trailer analyses that enough time has passed that there is literally how to cope with the death of half of life classes that exist now. Like, that's how much time has passed since... Hang on. Ergo, even though this could happen anywhere in there, I like the idea that it has been months, and they're still counting, still trying to figure out how many have been lost. Because if you pay attention, that's kind of how that works in real life, too. I mean, we actually, to this very day, don't actually know how many people died in major wars that happened less than a century ago. Because it's just difficult to actually get that kind of information. There's too many variables. There's too much chaos. You don't always have a way to identify the body. Sometimes there's not a body to identify. So you just have to try and rely on someone not reporting in, you know? There's a reason there's the unknown soldier graves over here in the States, you know? Yes, Baronessa, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And then, oh my god, Carol, Captain Marvel shows up. Now, for all of the complaints I've heard about her acting, I love how she said that line, "Where's Fury?" She sounded angry. And I point that out because, and everyone in the theater with me all pointed out the exact same thing, so forgive me for pointing out the obvious. Of course she noticed the decimation. How could she not? It hit everywhere. That's the whole point of the decimation. It wasn't Earth. It was everywhere. She probably was literally working with people who just... And the best part is most other people in the rest of the universe probably don't actually have any context for that. On Earth, they had the benefit of actually knowing what the hell was going on. I want you to imagine Nova Prime right now. La 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 la. Why are you dying? Okay, Nova Prime's a bad example because they were hit by Thanos before Infinity War, but you get the idea, right? And yeah, she would have gotten the pager pretty much within like a minute or two of... So, yeah. You can't tell me that she didn't put two and two together and just like, oh my god. She probably spent the entire time, like the months or whatever, just straight coming back the whole time. Because she was probably way the hell out there. Either that or she spent the time trying to figure to recover things there and then came straight back to Earth. One of the two. Yeah, we don't know. But I guarantee you, she's aware that something's up, and not just because the pager went off. As an aside, by the way, so let's address something. If you remember the end of Infinity War, Fury is like, oh my gosh, and he sees what's happening, and he sees, hang on, Overlord Mick, he sees what's happening, and he sees that everyone's dying, and he actually watches, I can't remember her name, die pretty much right in front of him. He rushes for the pager and hits it as soon as he can, right before he himself dies. Now, I point that out because that is extremely akin... Maria, thank you, Maria Hill. That is extremely Fury. As I pointed out, Fury is very adaptable, very smart, thinks on his feet very well. That was very well presented in this film. So it makes sense to me that within milliseconds of seeing what was happening, he dives for the pager. Runs for it, actually, if memory serves. But I bring that up for one other reason. A lot of people have been asking, why hasn't he been using it since then? So Kevin Feige made an official response on this. And the official response was not an answer. Let's just go ahead and say that flat out. He liked just, he didn't actually say, oh, it's because such and such. Instead, he asked a counter question. And I actually like this counter question because it makes perfect sense to me. How do you know he hasn't used it before? And I found myself knowing, or thinking, huh. Because I suddenly find myself enjoying the idea that he did it in Avengers 1. That he did it in Avengers 2. And, you know, there's probably a couple other examples as well. And she didn't show up. Probably because she was busy or whatever. But I like the idea that the only reason she finally decides to answer the pager this time is because she also saw the results of it where she was. Just a thought. It is also entirely possible that he did have a legitimate faith in the Avengers in both Avengers 1 and 2. I also firmly think that if it gotten to the point where they decided to nuke the Isle of Manhattan, that he probably would have gone ahead and... But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, no kidding, Colgrim. Kind of busy right now. I do firmly think that if he didn't, he absolutely would have done it if the nuke had gone off in Manhattan. Just a thought. So, those are our two options. Either she was busy and didn't respond, or he never actually used it. And honestly, I'm with both. I don't see a problem here, personally. I really don't. Now... I guess that's it. I don't have anything else to add to that. I'm trying to think. Was there anything else that needs to be covered? Any other thoughts you guys want to bring up about it? Although, of course, Overlord Mick asks just how bad are the Kree. Think Warhammer 40k, but lesser tier. The Imperium of Man, specifically. They are religious zealots who like to go conquering everything they can. In fact, it's arguably a plot hole. I don't think it's a plot hole, Malachar, I'm sorry. I think it is arguably, however, a plot hole over here in Guardians of the Galaxy, that the Novans were actually able to force peace onto the Kree. Because that's not the Kree way. The Kree don't do peace. That's literally against their mentality. In fact, one of the things that's mentioned is even after Ronan was killed. Remember, Ronan was officially... Yes, Colossan. Ronan was officially... disavowed by the Kree military. And yet, when Ronan was killed, the Kree were up in arms about that. Because he was a holy warrior. You know. So, if anything, that's the biggest plot hole for me, is the fact that the Kree were at peace with the Novans. That's just weird. That's true, we don't know what kind of deal was made, and I actually looked into that when I was doing my video on Guardians of the Galaxy. I imagine Marvel is related, Baronessa. She almost has to be. Like, she almost literally has to be involved, because I can't imagine any other way the Kree would have backed off on that one. Maybe she literally destroyed Supreme Intelligence. That might do it. One of the things that's been mentioned in real-life history is when you have a top-down economy, if the top goes away, the whole thing just collapses, right? And the Kree are definitely a top-down economy. I know what you're saying. Why are you saying economy? Well, the purpose of an economy is the top tells the bottom tier what to do, tells the bottom tier what to do, tells the bottom tier what to do. In other words, in such an environment, these people, the soldiers, don't make decisions. The captains don't make decisions. The colonels don't make decisions. The generals don't make decisions. The top makes decisions. And then they tell them what to do, who tells them what to do, who tells them what to do. Make sense? And that is very much the Kree. The Supreme Intelligence makes decisions. And everyone else just says, yep. So, if Captain Marvel, you know, the Supreme Intelligence, it is entirely feasible that the Kree basically self-destructed as a world power, or a galactic power. And we're just like, I did too, Papa Nakes. Why did Thanos wait so long to gather the Infinity Stones? The answer that has been given for that is that he was waiting until he actually had one in hand, and so in other words, he didn't want to reveal himself until he was able to get all of them. He didn't know where the last stone was, so until he had a line on either one, all but one, or all of the stones, he wasn't going to actually move. The only reason he finally moved in Infinity War was he knew where every stone was except for one, and so he made a quick lightning strike to gain the first two, just bam, bam, and then moved forward. Now, the fact that he was dumb enough to lend one to Loki, that's a straight-up retcon at this point. We should just acknowledge that. And when I say retcon, I mean it was not planned at the time. I'm making it up as they go. Yeah, that's a good way to put that. He basically blitzkrieged for the stones. Waited until he was ready, and then nabbed... If you remember, he nabs the first two within weeks, or a week. Because he actually gets the Nova... If you're paying attention, he gets the Nova Prime Stone right before Thor Ragnarok. then he gets the Tesseract Stone right after Thor Ragnarok. And Thor Ragnarok does not occur over a long period of time. It's a couple of weeks. So, bam, bam. Just boom, boom, two, right there. That's true. He did know Gamora knew where the Soul Stone was. So again, it makes sense to me that he wouldn't make a move until he was ready. And then if you're paying attention, he starts, after he gets the first two, he starts grabbing them within hours of each other. Just, and that one, yep, and then that one, yep, there we go. Two left. Three left, actually, at that point. Sorry. But yeah, as Schmeidoff points out, Thanos knew as soon as he would start to make a move, he would paint a massive target on his chest. And Thanos is strong and has an army. But there's bigger and worse out there than just Thanos. Remember, Thanos is basically the Hulk with an intellect with, you know, an army at his back. Now, that's pretty impressive, but that is a defeatable force. Now, once he started getting the stones, well, now he goes from a defeatable force to being a force. Yeah, I agree. Space Stone was absolutely crucial. Excuse me. Yeah, we'll see what's going on with Loki. I mean, he's getting his own show, so that's something. I guess for me, it makes a degree of sense, Saldir. Like, how do I phrase this? Have you seen Justice League, Saldir? Nah, I gotta wait. Okay, so at the end of Justice League, spoilers, the big guy comes back and just wrecks everything, right? Because he's the big guy. Do you think that removed... like, how do you feel about that? I mean, she even flies in a similar manner, Overlord Mick. The reason I bring this up, it is my firm opinion that it is possible to write a good Superman story. I've talked about this for years and years and years and years and years. Because Superman is ridiculously high tier. Absolutely insanely high tier. He is one of the highest tier superheroes ever. It's just, I'll acknowledge that. He's freaking Superman. Now, I bring that up, though, because obviously that is a difficult thing to write for. Because you can't do any of the usual tricks. Without cheating, which is what they usually do, you can't challenge Superman without basically pulling some bull crap. He is such an overwhelming threat that it's hard to maintain standard tension. Yeah, exactly, Overlord. Like, if you're going to do a Superman story, you have to approach it from a different angle. You have to write it differently. Now, I'm not saying Justice League the movie did that. What I'm trying to bring up is, I don't think the fact that a character is superpowered, like really superpowered, by itself is a bad thing. Especially at the conclusion and basically the climax of a film. In fact, if you're paying attention, a lot of superhero films, especially origin films, have the exact same pattern to them. For example, Batman Begins. By the end of Batman Begins, Bats is effectively superpowered. Now I know what you're saying. What? No, he's not. He's super normal. He's just the same as he's always been. But pay attention to the narrative, the flow of the events, and what happens. Bats, Bruce, spends a lot of Batman Begins losing, failing, and trying again. And in fact, it concludes with his house burning down around him. But as soon as he recovers from the house burning down incident, he smashes his way through the rest of his challenges for the rest of the film. Because that's the normal approach. Once you have shown the hero losing, then you show the hero win. Make sense? In other words, while she was like, I don't really see there anything wrong with it because it was just the her winning moment. That's all it was. Absolutely, Souther. You know I like hearing your thoughts, especially given how often we disagree. I'm trying to think of other hero movies that did a similar thing. I suppose Spider-Man is actually a good example. The old Sam Raimi Spider-Man did the same thing. And actually, Homecoming did the same thing, too, now that I think on that. The scene in the building. I'm not going to spoil, but you know, the scene in the building, which is just still a horrifying scene to me. And he managed to get out of that one and just, oh, that was good. That was... Oof. Oh, I agree, Baronessa. Iron Man? Iron Man actually had only... Iron Man was different. If you pay attention, Iron Man is actually one of the true exceptions when it comes to superhero movies. Although, that's funny to say now, considering how much the MCU likes to pattern itself after Iron Man 1. But Iron Man 1 takes the same general jigsaw pieces and completely rearranges them from what a normal superhero origin movie will be. It had his darkest moment right at the beginning. Just, bam, first thing, ugh. And then it had his super-powered moment twice. Once when he was escaping, the horror film I mentioned during my rumination on it, and then once when he goes and just chests out the suit for the first time. You know, tank missile, all that stuff. And then the rest of the film was far more about character than it was about Iron Man. And I think that's one of the reasons that Iron Man 1 worked so well, in my opinion. Hi, Epsilon Snake. And yeah, a lot of it was about the trauma. In fact, Iron Man 1 and 2 and Avengers and 3 are all about the trauma. In fact, you could say the same thing about Civil War and about Infinity War. So, but yeah, I think that's actually one of the rare exceptions to this overall pattern. Even Man of Steel, to continue with a weird direction with this, had a bit where it's like, you know, oh god, and then they're here and they're superpowered, blah, blah. And then he goes after Zod in Metropolis and he just crushes him. He is utterly unchallenged as he destroys the devices and just absolutely curb stomps Zod. I actually thought that was rather satisfying, if I'm being honest. Watching Soups just absolutely destroy Zod. But anyways, I digress. I think I'm out of things to talk about for Captain Marvel. Do you guys got anything else? Although we do, let's see. So, we got Shazam. That's coming out in about 5 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. And then we move forward and we have, I think Infinity War is actually, or not Infinity War, excuse me, Endgame is actually next at this point. Yeah, no kidding, Siler. I agree. Yeah, I am legitimately hoiped for Endgame at this point. I wish it was out right now. Do I think Spider-Man could block a punch from her? Yeah, as long as she doesn't use the beams. I mean, Spider-Man is pretty darn strong. He could also probably just dodge a punch from her, because he's Spider-Man, but, you know. Oh, sorry, I was assuming he was in the Iron Spider suit. I should clarify that, because that adds to that. I still think he could at least take a punch, but no, he'd dodge it. It's Spidey. Let's talk about this. It's Spidey. Yeah, I guess that's everything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and chop off the local recording. So those of you on YouTube, goodbye forever.